Hi, I'm Josh Cadillac, and welcome to my podcast, Know Your Shit. I've been blessed to see great success, as well as seeing the bottom up close and personal in 2008. And if there's one lesson I've learned is that if you want to have success and differentiate yourself from everyone else out there, you need to know your shit. As a successful real estate and crypto investor and an educator, it drives me insane that people do not immerse themselves in their craft. Everyone is so busy advertising and testing new sales techniques, they forget the most important thing, the product. Here I want to talk to the folks that got this right, the most successful people in the world in every industry. Bring them to you and find out what they learned in their business that made it great. When you listen to my podcast, you will know for sure that the topics and experts we have on have one thing in common. They know their shit. Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Know Your Shit podcast, where our knowledge and pride in what we do drives us to excellence. My name is Josh Cadillac, and I'll be in the driver's seat for today's show as we strive to learn how to make your dollars work hard so you don't have to. We have a great show for you today. Without further ado, let's get started. Today, we're joined by some great guests. We have Glenn and Amber Schworm with us. These folks are the house flipping pros, guys. They have been doing this for real since 2007, I guess, and have flipped over 800 houses at this point. Is that so, guys? Tell me about that.
Yeah, it's
never a dull moment around our house.
yeah, it's been a long time. We started back when the market turned. You know, we did our first flip. We bought our first house in 07 and then flipped it in 08 when the market crashed and tumbled. And we didn't know. Everybody said, "Wow, you guys are brilliant. You guys knew when to get in." I'm like, "Nah, we were desperate and broke and hungry. We didn't have any grand vision. We just needed to make money."
We were sleeping on an air mattress.
We were. Yeah, 2-bedroom condo, both going through divorces from our spouses. So that takes a long process, you know. So we were going through all that. It was a tough time, no question about it. But we cut our teeth during that really tough time to do real estate. Everybody said, "Get out, don't do it." And then we finally we never listen to anybody that says that kind of stuff. I was, you know, as you've heard, I say that the masses have a silent M, right? So I don't listen to what the masses have to say.
Yeah, and it's a dangerous thing to base your success on someone else's failure too.
Yeah. We pushed through all that really hard, and yeah, here we are today. I mean, you know, 875, whatever. We did 100 deals on the nose last year. Combination of wholesales, actual full-on flips, like you see on, you know, HGTV, that kind of stuff, and then lot more rentals these days. We're big into long-term play without question. That's our. You get to a certain age, you start looking back, going, "Yeah, I want the retirement income. That's what I want now."
Absolutely. Well, I mean, and this is the thing that we're seeing on my end. I don't know if you guys are seeing it in your market at the same time, but it appears the investor customer in general has revalued real estate. And what I mean by that is the projection for rents going up because of inflation, and the projection for real estate prices going up has improved. And so investors are willing to take these investment properties at a much lower rate of return now. They're willing to buy them at a premium because getting out of other things and into real estate, where you have a much greater certainty of growth when there's inflation, is seems to be topical. What do you guys think?
It's funny, you know, right where we sit right now as we're recording this, interest rates are climbing like pretty rapidly, you know. Mm-hmm. We just looked at a house today, thinking about making a short term out of it. It's 1.5 million down here. It's on the water. And we're like, we just moved, well, not just a year ago. We moved from upstate New York, which is where we do our business, still operates up there. We live down the coast in Florida, down the West Coast, and in the North Reagan Beach area. We're right. I'm looking out here in the water right now, so this is where we are. And it was always a dream to be here. But
real estate made that happen for us.
Yeah, it did. Yeah, it did. So we looked at that house, and I called my broker and said, "Where are we at with rates today?" He's like, "Yeah, so we can probably." He said, "You'll probably qualify on your own, probably at 6%. If you have to go with a no doc loan, probably 7%." I'm like, "That's different than a couple of months ago, you know." So that's going to be a different game, because all of a sudden that number, you know, the number all of a sudden, maybe it used to be that payment was 6,000 or 7,000 a month. Now it's 9,000, 10,000 a month. So all of a sudden the game changes, you know, with that. So I wonder if we're going to see less people getting involved, or I wonder if just, you know, I don't know. We've been through these cycles before, and I feel like.
And sometimes house prices lower when the interest rates go up.
Yeah, I mean,
right now everybody's asking a premium for their houses.
It's such an odd, you know.
Low inventory.
I love the title, "Know Your Shit," right? And I'm thinking, gosh, I don't know my shit. I'd like to know, but my crystal ball is broken. We just don't know what's going to happen, right?
I can help you out if you want. I actually got done, just finished researching this because the most recent class that I did was a class on inflation. And because the number one question we get asked on this side, I'm a real estate agent. I've been training real estate agents for a long time. Number one question is this a bubble or some version of when the bubble bursts, we want to be there with cash to get in? And the big moving target on this whole thing, and this is what I say to people all the time. All right, what did cash do in the last year? Well, if you're going to believe CPI, which politicians use, so I get very nervous about CPIs. And anytime a word comes out of a politician's mouth, you got to figure it's not so great. It's at 8.5%. It's known to understate inflation. So if you look at the producer price index, it's at 11.2, which means you put $1 under your mattress, you pulled about 88 cents of buying power out from last year to this year. Real estate, I'm in Florida as well. Real estate in Florida is up about 25% from last year.
Yeah.
That's a 35-point differential, guys, between cash and real estate. So there's no question why they're in. So the question is really, is the music going to stop? And so the thing you got to look back to is not 2008, because 2008 was a market driven by artificial buyers that shouldn't have been there.
Correct.
So we have to look back at to the last time that we had a significant increase in the supply of money, when the money supply was diluted. And that happened when we came off the gold standard, when Nixon took us off the gold standard in the early 1970s. That was the period of time where we had the highest inflation we've ever had in this country, other than a brief period back in the 19 teens. Anyway, lasted for over a decade. And to get it to stop it in the 80s, interest rates got all the way up to 18 and 21%. So you got to figure the real estate market tanked, right? No, it never did. The worst year was 1982. Real estate prices still went up by 1%. Now, by no means is that a great market, but the prices never came down. And the reason being, and this is the other piece of this, right? As you're talking about the interest rates going up, you have the other pressure that's going on. What are the rents doing? And the rents are going up, and the rents aren't affected by interest rates, which means there's always going to be this pressure applied to people that are tenants to move them over to purchase, because their rent keeps going up, and that house they want to buy keeps running away from them. So they need to at some point, they have to make the decision to make the switch, even if the interest rates are high, because otherwise they're just not going to be able to afford to live, because wages tend to trail inflation. I know that was a lot on that topic, but
that was a lot. That was a lot. What? Well, you're totally right. Amber and I, people have asked me all the time, "Is it going to burst?" I said, I don't think so. I think we're going to see a bit of a slow as the interest rates go up, but I don't think because I've always said, it was artificial, because it was also, based on a lot of fraudulent lending and bad business practices. But what's happening now is legitimate business. It's supply and demand. It's legitimate economics that are happening right now. It's real.
Understood. Absolutely.
Happens. I just don't. So that's what I tell all of our students. I'm like, I don't think we're going to see a burst. I think we're going to see a bit of a slow, only because, honestly, people can't afford as much of a house when your interest rate is 5% for a residential, or 5.5, as opposed to, we bought our home here on the water. We got it at 2.85.
Yeah.
Honestly, I wouldn't have bought a house this large, this much. I don't think I would have, because I wouldn't have liked the payment that we had.
The payment would have been too much. Yeah.
Yeah. And I was just because I'm just out of my comfort zone. And I was like, it still was, but it was very tolerable. But nonetheless, I came from a house in upstate New York that was, in the 6 figures, moving to the multiple 7 figures, so a different number, so
yeah.
You're in the 2.75 range. It was like, wow. And I just told Amber, I said, so funny, in the past month, we wouldn't wanted to have bought this house now with the rates that they are now. So that means that buyers that are coming in now won't be able to afford as much of a house as they could have a month ago. So
correct.
We'll slow down, I do think, at that level, because there's not as many buyers in that pool anymore.
Sure.
As many. So
we've already seen. We're already seeing it. The number of mortgage loan applications is down. But the other counter piece to that is we had a ratio of about 10 buyers to every one single property that was available on the market. And so seeing that number come down, I think, is actually a healthier, more sustainable market. There's no way to sustain what we had.
There was that cycle too, where buyers were getting buyer fatigue because they were putting out so many offers, and then they just hit the pause button and said, "Screw this! I'm not gonna do this for now." I keep getting my hopes up, and then they come crashing down, and they would get tired of riding that roller coaster. Even
the market here in Florida, where we are, our property went up 20-some% last year, and I'm like, that just can't. Listen, I love it, but that can't continue, because even nationwide, how can that possibly continue? Because
people wouldn't be able to afford to live anywhere.
Even wealthy people wouldn't be able to afford houses pretty soon. It would be get out of hand at that rate. So it has to simmer. Now, as a real estate investor, what I hope what happens when we got started in 08, 09, 10, is that we see more people that have to get out of their properties, and we see more of that. We see more inventory. Oh, and here comes interruption. I knew that was going to come. Mommy. So anyway, that's that.
Stories.
Hear that? So I'm hoping to see more inventory. I don't think we're going to see as much as we saw in 08, 09, that kind of stuff.
No.
No, we do have all the people that were not paying their mortgages, but I think most banks are trying to work that out with everybody so they don't have a massive problem on their hands. But we base our business model, Josh, totally on, like, I've never invested in the trends, if that makes sense. Like when we first got in, everybody was doing short sales, and we're like, I did one short sale actually for the home that we still own, the home that we lived in for 10 years up in New York. I hated that process so bad. I'm like, you can have the short sale process. God bless you if you want to have that. And we base our model on the fundamentals of all the D's, right? Death, divorce, disease, dilapidated, disgusted, destruction, right? All the D's that we find those motivated sellers, and that happens in any market. People get divorced, people die, people have disease, there's things that happen. So we based our model on that fundamental. And then when something hit last year or 2 years ago, well, fantastic. Then the houses sell for more. But if we stick with the fun, I guess I'm almost boring in the sense that, I believe we go to baseball games, they're won by base hits.
Yep.
That's what they're won by, getting on base. If you follow Moneyball at all, right?
Yeah.
On base. And so that's
Absolutely.
what I try and tell our students is like, listen, just stick with the fundamentals. If you catch a wave, fantastic. But if when we did, people said, you have to do short sales. I'm like, but what about when that goes away? And really it did. Like, it was like all these short sales and all these short sale companies kind of shut down. I'm like, we weren't on that wave. We stayed in our boring wave that just looked for motivated sellers. Yeah. So that's what we teach everybody.
And the other good thing too about this kind of situation is when markets do get a little tougher, it filters out all the people that thought it was easy or that were doing
Absolutely.
it.
You bet.
So that lowers your competition ratio as well.
Yeah.
Amateur hour ends. Absolutely. No, we see it. Look, I mean, I was the short sale agent for a long time from the standpoint of I had agents on the real estate side. As an agent, agents wouldn't touch it. It's like, this is too much work. I'm like, give them to me, I'll do them.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, I was carrying 70, 80 listings at a time. And it was a pain in the neck, but I look at it this way, again, kind of like your guys are saying, the boring method. I put them in the system, and maybe it takes a year or two, but eventually they come out. And when they do come out, and so you just kind of that plugging away, because at the end of the day, you're building a business, right? And it's a matter of just following the rules and plugging away. Derek Jeter got in the Hall of Fame not by hitting home runs, just what you said.
Yeah.
And so,
I just to be clear too, I wasn't like, we did short sales. I didn't put all my eggs in a trendy basket.
Absolutely.
Now, did we do them? Of course. We did several. Did they drive me nuts? Yes, because they always come due at a time when all my money was deployed. That's what they always come to be like.
Always.
Tomorrow. I'm already 6 million in. What are you talking about? Okay, thanks a lot. And money back then wasn't as easy as it is today.
It is not.
Money back then wasn't a big thing. So yeah, we went through the time when there was no money available. That's kind of how we cut our teeth, is that we started when, right now you can find money just about anywhere.
Yep.
And that it's still there. It's going to be more expensive as it goes on. But we started build. It was probably we did our first flip. We did a no doc loan through a bank. We used credit cards.
Right away.
Yeah. Then the second house, I had 2 houses under contract. Really good friend of mine, played racquetball sports with them all the time. He was my mortgage guy. He owned a mortgage company. And I called him. I said, Dave, I need another mortgage. He said, they're gone. I said, well, no, I have good credit. He said, I know you do. The mortgages for you, like for investor stuff, is gone. That's when the market turned in 08. And I'm like, no, you can get one for me. He goes, bro, I cannot get one for you. We're done. And I had 2 houses under contract. And I'm like, well, shit.
Yeah.
Like, I have no money. And we immediately went to, where can we find money? And we started to raise private money. And we didn't know what we were doing. But we called some friends, and we put a little packet together. And lo and behold, we found a good friend of Amber. So she worked out with the gym. Didn't know she had money. This is the fun part. Amber's like, JD said that she'd love to do it if she had money. And I said, how do they not have money? They lived in this monster house, which I knew they used to do all kinds of DIY stuff on it.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm thinking, if you did all that DIY stuff on it, you had to have created equity. So I called her and said, you got a home equity? I said, how much you owe on that house? It was, at the time, let's say it was 200. And I said, what's that house worth? She goes, probably 450. I go, do you have a line of credit? She goes, I think so. I haven't used it. I have to reactivate it, but why? What are you thinking? I said, what is your rate? She's like, it's 4%. I said, okay. Now back at the time I said, how about I pay you 14% and you borrow the money at 4%, you make 10% on the spread, and we'll go ahead and start flipping houses on your money. And she's like, that sounds confusing, but great, let's do that. And so
Yep.
we did it. And she said, I said, I'll make your monthly payment of $350 a month. And so that led to more. We raised like $5 or $6 million in private lender funds. We still use them to this day.
She's still an investor to this day.
She still is. And yeah, she still is. And so we, just looking back to that time, we came through a time when we had to grind for it wasn't just like, hey, can I get some money? Let's look for the money. It just wasn't that easy,
No.
So we've had to grind to get to where we are without question.
Beautiful. I can tell you that a similar pain point, if you will, on the way in, I was very long in real estate in coming 2007, and I decided brilliantly enough to go into the restaurant business simultaneously.
Wow.
Yeah. So if you want to talk about a wipeout, I lost a couple $1 million, basically had to start from scratch again, coming out of 08, and started in real estate, bought my first property as a condo with a couple of partners. And from that, we've grown it into the 50, 60 properties that we own right now. And constantly picking up more whenever and wherever we can, because as it turns out, I love real estate. Who knew? But
going through that experience is how you got the name of your show, Know Your Shit.
Yeah, you have to. I mean, at the end, actually, you know what really you have to do is just go hang out in a real estate office and realize how many people there, like how scarce a commodity is actually. Like you and I, the three of us, we get it. Real estate is great. And we could list 50 reasons why it's amazing.
Yeah.
You know who can't? The real estate agent that's supposed to sell it to you.
Yeah, you're right.
The number one embarrassing question I ask agents: what's good about real estate? Oh, I get to meet such interesting people. I get to make my own hour. No, not what's good about your job. What's good about the product you sell? You know, sales is in your name, right? The thing you sell, what's good about it?
Right.
And so like us on the investor side, and it's one of the reasons why I teach investment so much, in order to get your head around what's good about real estate, you got to understand it as an investment. And the trick question I always ask is, what percentage of home buyers last year were investors? The answer is 100%. Whether they realized it or not, they were an investor. And the way I say it is like this. Let's say last night I was fooling around on Amazon because I couldn't get a good night's sleep. I was poking around and I clicked a button or two that maybe I shouldn't have. And by mistake, I don't even know what I did. I want to buy 100 shares of Amazon stock. Am I an investor in Amazon? Well, yeah, you got to be. You are. But I didn't mean to. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter why you buy something. It's what you buy that determines whether or not you're an investor. And real estate is an investment quality asset. The number that I love, and this one, by all means, please use this one, guys, if you think it's worthwhile. Nearly 90% of all businesses that exist in the United States of America today were started by somebody taking equity against their primary residence.
Oh, I've never heard that. I'm not surprised, but I'm not. But it's interesting. Yeah.
Yeah. No, I mean, well, we're both on the education side, but on different spectrums. I'm training the guys that sell them, and you're training the people that buy it. So it's good stuff. But when you get your head around that, and if you've studied history and economics, right, the idea, this is the single greatest wealth building tool that's ever been available to the common person in the history of humankind. Real estate, and not specifically real estate in the United States of America. We can borrow money so inexpensively to do it, even with the interest rates going up. It's still relatively cheap compared to the rest of the world, with a good, stable economy, great contract law, all these wonderful things bolstering it up. So let me ask you this question, and because I see it a lot. I actually wrote a book on how money works and investing and stuff like that, because not separate from real estate, just because that's where my passion and my heart is at in a lot of ways. Where do the folks that you get, how on a scale of 1 to 10, where is their understanding of how money works on a grand scale?
So, good question. I have to think through that. So let me preface that by saying this. Our world used to be, we've been doing the education space. Our company is Vestor Pro. It's called The Real Estate of Mind. That's our tagline in the company. And you should know that our motto is we help everyday people create wealth through real estate investing, because that's who we are and that's what we did. That's what we say to people. So that being said, we do all of our workshops now via Zoom. And it used to be, we went to hotel ballrooms, did all that. And then when COVID hit, I thought my business was down. I mean,
Done.
Josh, literally, we had $80,000 into infomercials and TV and radio. And Lord Cuomo up there in New York pulled the plug and said, no more live events. We're like, I just lost 80 grand. I'm like,
Done. Yeah.
okay. And that stung. People are like, oh, it doesn't matter. I don't care how much you're worth. 80 grand is a lot of money. Like, I'm not Mark Cuban. I mean, it's still a lot of money.
Absolutely.
So it's
Worked hard for that.
I don't pay that for dinner like those guys do. You know what I mean? We're still working, right? So
Yeah. And you worked hard for that money. That's
absolutely,
right.
absolutely. So we got nailed down. And so long story short, we went virtual. And I'm getting to your question because we went virtual. And so now for the past 2 years, we do our home flipping workshop virtually, and they are a smashing success. Like, we're able to really connect. What I don't always have is the one-on-one with people. Now my team does. So, but so I get a flavor for it. So to answer your question, very long answer, I know, but we're on a podcast.
No, it's fine.
The long answer is, I think it's a mixture across the board. We have some people that come to the workshop because we only charge $59 for 3 full days, and it's a no bullshit workshop. I mean, we really do give a ton of value. We have, I think now on Google, 600 5-star reviews, and on Facebook another 500 either reviews, and now they went over to the like or something like that. But we have over 1,000 reviews online that are all like big long paragraphs people have written about us. And so we have this mixture of people that know nothing about money, that they have some but don't know what to do with it. We have people that have nothing. We have people that are hardworking. I think middle America is probably our
Yeah, I mean,
they're average people like we were. They're just average people.
There's a percentage of people that are entrepreneurial and do know about
Yeah.
business and know, how that world works, and even some that know about hard money. But I would say the largest portion of people are literally just everyday people, nurses, truck drivers, people that, came out of the military, like literally across the board.
Real estate
There's
agents. We
real
always
estate
have a
agents,
few of them that come in.
contractors,
Probably, would you
electricians,
say
like,
about 20? I'd say about 15 to 20% of the room.
Are
Because I ask who's the business owner. I
Yeah.
say part-time or full-time, who's the business owner? And I'd say 15, 20% of the room usually goes up. So they're either dabbling or they're a full-on business owner.
But they're all people that want something different, and they're all people that have an interest in real estate or have loved it forever, and just wanted to find the right kind of mentorship and coach to help them get from point A to point B. But yeah,
Well, I think where we stand out is we've been through, much like yourself, we've been through
the
all
good
different
times and the bad
cycles.
times.
So we started in the crap. We started in the worst time ever. We've been through the ups and downs through that. And it was, and all of a sudden the past few years, it's been like ridiculous.
And there's so many self-proclaimed gurus right now
Oh my
that,
God.
may or may not even really do real estate.
Never even put the
that
house
are-
before.
that
I've
are
seen
saying
people.
that
Yeah,
they
never put the
can- they can
house.
teach you how to
Yeah.
do it. That we don't like that.
Come by my course. It's so funny when Amber and I, it was our third house. I always knew I wanted to get in the education space. That's always my passion. I always has been.
Sure.
And my other life, I used to fly around and speak and train and whatnot. And about our third house, I said to Amber, you know what? This is it. Like, I always wanted to have something where I could, because I love Anthony Robbins. I love the inspiration, but I also want to give people something to do. Like,
Yeah.
not just, I leave the room, I feel so good about myself, and go out and go, well, now what? Well, shit.
Yeah.
Nothing. So I want to give them a game plan. And we're about the third house. We did all the work ourselves. Remember that 15-hour
Oh, I
days,
remember.
15-hour days, 33 days straight. And got a bidding war where everybody said the market was crashing, but whatever. I said to Amber, I said, this is it. Like, we could do this. This is what I could teach people. We can do this together. But we didn't open our coaching business till 400 deals later.
Mm.
So we're the
We
kind of
wanted to
people
know our shit.
we want to know our shit, right? So I think it's perfect for your show. We wanted to know it. And same with we just recently launched what's called the Millionaire B&B Blueprint, because we have 13 short-term rentals that we use, Airbnb, VRBO, all that stuff, and they've been really successful for us. And we have a new course for that. And we didn't want to launch that course until we had success. So we had 13 of them running before we did a course. Not people that do one and go, hey, I had a booking, let's build a course.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
we are. So
Absolutely. No, that feeling of responsibility to really know what you're talking about before you teach people is something I'm a big believer in, and mad respect to you guys for staying true to that and not just taking the opportunity. So I know you're talking about your home flipping workshops, and that's what you were discussing. When are they? You said they have 10 a year, you said?
yeah, we do one about every 5 weeks ish. We have one coming up. Well, it depends on when they hear this, but I won't say the dates. But whatever, you go to homeflippingworkshop.com, and you can find out when the next one's coming. We kind of getting in our network. We have a lot of things that are going on. There's a Glenn and Amber page you can follow too. We have a show coming out. I'm not sure what network they're looking for. We have a show we recorded last year where we helped the students start to finish, flip their first house, funded them, did everything with them. And we even threw some crazy stuff at them. They didn't know, like we put fake inspectors in to scare the crap out of them and stuff. It's pretty fun. So we did that.
To see how they handle stress.
Yeah, we have a new
Awesome.
book coming out. We have a new book. I just got the manuscript today. So once we finalize that, it's coming out in August. That's an actual, not a self-published book, but like a company called us and said we want to write a book. So we want you to write a book. So it's called the Birth of the Everyday Real Estate. The birth of the Everyday Real Estate Investor. I should know the title of our book, shouldn't I? So the birth of the everyday real estate.
It's okay. It's okay. There's a book coming out and it's going to be really awesome. Title to be announced.
The title too. So.
It's so good. When you even read the title, it was that good. So all right, let's talk about that, because you know what, I get a bunch of questions on this, and we do a lot of because I'm always teaching real estate analysis, because on the real estate side, as the agent, my job is to take and make that bowling alley over there comparable to that office building over there, and how do I make those things alike? So how do I get those cash flows lined up? And so one of the big ones that people hit me with is the short-term versus long-term rentals. Now, long-term rentals all day long, you know, I can sit there and have my nice little 5% vacancy factor that my bank is requiring for me to carry in my normal debt service coverage ratio loan. Yeah. And that's an unreasonable number. Management fee is going to be one thing when it's a long-term rental. You're asking for a manager that's going to be in the hotel business if you're going to have the short-term management thing, and the rate they're going to charge is different. Utilities, all sorts of these expenses change. And so maybe I like to maybe your biggest, if you don't mind, tips on the short-term rental thing. What are the things to be cognizant of? And what are kind of the numbers you look for as far as vacancy, as far as management type thing? What makes that model work for you?
I'm gonna let the pro talk about. So when we started that business, about the second weekend, Amber goes, "So
You're fired.
You're fired." I go, "What am I fired for?" She goes, "Get the hell out of here." She goes, "You go do the flipping, the coaching. You go do that." And her and our son actually build the Airbnb. So I know enough to be dangerous, but go ahead, babe, take it over.
Yeah.
She's the pro.
It does depend on what market you're in. In upstate New York, when we started our first few, we had no competition. So we didn't even have the tools that are available today, like AirDNA to analyze all that. So we kind of had to guess at rents, and we just, really did a grassroots production of it.
We should preface by saying that upstate New York is no vacation destination.
No, nobody says, "Hey, honey, let's go to Albany, New York." On vacation.
I've been to Albany. I know what you mean.
Yeah, we're in a town called Schenectady, and the first Airbnb we had, again, wanted to prove the model, was a house directly across the street from us. We wanted to watch how it all worked. So we bought the house across the street because it was for sale, and so we turned it into an Airbnb, and that was our first gift. So before we start, I think people should know that all 13 of our locations, none are in vacation destinations.
Right.
And then we still make the money, which we'll talk about.
But if they are, if people are in areas where there's a lot of Airbnbs, or if they're in a travel destination or whatever, I would definitely encourage them to use those tools that are at their disposal, like AirDNA, or there's a few others, just so you can, know what kind of pricing you're going to. Make sure you compare apples to apples. Make sure it's if you're doing a renovated house, make sure you're looking at, just like you do comps, other renovated houses, same bedroom, same bathroom, same neighborhood, that sort of thing. Filter out the partiers. There's definitely ways to do that. That's probably the biggest concern people have. But as far as the numbers go, we're making 3x, 4x on our mortgage payment. So even by the time you account for the utilities and the trash and the cable and the management, all that stuff, we're still clearing over $1,000 a month per property.
And these are not vacation destinations. Right. Make sure we're clear about that.
Now, I've got a friend that's doing them. He's in California, but he's doing them in a neighboring state, and I forget what state it is now, but up in the mountains. He's making 10x on his mortgage because all the California money goes there and stays in his higher end Airbnb. So it just depends on where you are and how much you're going to make. But let's just, for numbers' sake, the house across the street from us, for example, if we were going to rent that out as a long-term rental, we might get $1,600, $1,700 a month.
Maybe after inflation, maybe another year might get that much. Probably $1,500. Yeah.
So as an Airbnb, we make about $4,000 a month on it.
Yeah, and it's nice, but it's not.
It's in a country setting.
Yeah.
It's,
that's 4,000 gross or 4,000 net.
Yeah,
4,000 gross. And then we got back, obviously we have a mortgage payment on that thing. We do a refi, the usual stuff. But
as a traditional rental, we might be only making $300
Right.
a month positive cash flow.
So
Okay, so that's what I'm always looking at. For me, it's always about scrubbing all the numbers out and getting to the net. So it's 300 to 1,000. You're clearing 1,000 with the one. You'd clear maybe $300 with the other one. So there's your differential in cash flow.
Right. And it's, is there more work? Yeah. Our son does the management. He's 22. He's getting really good at it. He's doing a really great job.
If we didn't have him though, we'd hire a VA.
Yeah. We hire a VA to do that part. And then we because we flip so many houses, we have a full on
maintenance crew,
and we have a property manager. They're right in house. So like today we had a neighbor that was like, you knew about that? We had the neighbor bitch, and he bitches about everything. Calls town, there's always that one neighbor that calls the town. That our son took care of it. And but even backing though figure about 18% property management, probably 18 to 20. Yeah, figure 20 for an even number. 20% property management, and here's the cool part, Josh. There's not really a vacancy. People come and go and come and go. There is some vacancy days, but you never have a month. We never had a month with no income.
No.
Right?
Sure.
That's the interesting part. There are vacancies, but they're days or a week or two. They're not. Right. You don't go months without anything.
And you have more eyes on the property too, because as a long-term rental, you don't know if the people are tearing up the house or not because you're never in the house. Whereas with a short-term rental, you're in there sometimes multiple times a week for cleanings. Not you, your cleaning crew is. And that's the other thing I would tell anybody listening is run it like a business. Don't run it like a hobby. You don't want to be the one that's in there cleaning the houses and turning them over and meeting the guests. Like you set it up. That's where our whole course goes A to Z on how to find it. Even if you're not even buying the real estate, a good way to do it is just arbitraging. You can arbitrage existing rental properties and turn them into short-term rentals. Yeah, so
that's a good way to get started. We're all about the building wealth. So we're all about if you can get wealth faster, if you don't need that extra cash flow, put that towards your mortgage payment. Pay that sucker off in third of the time.
Right.
If you're making an extra $1,500 a month or whatever you're clearing, or $1,000, put that towards your mortgage payment. If you don't need that money, pay it off. If you want to take some money, take it. But what a way to get wealthy fast. So you can really, really get down, or you're taking the tax, write off, depending on what your interest rate is, or whatever, all that kind of stuff. There's a lot of variables, but you have a lot of cool options, I think, in short term that
and
it's got some headaches, but what doesn't?
But how many, it's kind of like the American dream to own your own vacation homes all over the country or all over the world if you want to.
Right.
So what a better way to have somebody else pay that mortgage down and you have a place to go with your family.
Sure.
Traveled Europe a couple years ago. We kept staying in air right before COVID. This was 3 years ago. And we were in Europe. We stayed at all these people's homes just all around Europe. And I'm like, what are we doing? How come we don't have these? It gets your brain churning a little bit, So we left New York, and our home up there was, call it a $400,000 home. It was real nice. Got a pool in the backyard, has a beach, it has a heated pool, big sink. It's a really nice home. She's a master designer. So we live there.
From our lovely
right now we're still designing this house. So we're still doing stuff here. So
it's good to me.
That house is beautiful. In New York, we left, and people are like, "Oh, you gotta sell your house?" I go, "No." And that property, what are we getting per night?
I'm making about $5,000 or $6,000 a month on that one.
I didn't know that. She kind of held that little fact for me, so that's nice to know. So that house will net more like 2,000 after all said.
More than that, I think.
After all said and done. That's good. I didn't know that. I just learned something today. So
absolutely. No, and I mean it's definitely a different business model. The thing that for me always with all the different business models that exist is making all things equal as best we can, because we get customers that come in and they see that number, that per night number they think they can get.
Yeah.
And I have to say, well, hey, look, you're right. You're absolutely right. You're not going to have a month where you're vacant, but you're not going to have a month usually where you're occupied every day of the month either. It's a short-term rental.
Get a lot of those actually.
You do get those people that'll rent it for a whole month and stuff like that. Sure. But you can't bank on that with that business model. So figuring out what that vacancy number is going to look like for your number, pulling that out. So it's not 1,000 a night, maybe it's 700 a night is what you're going to average with your whatever, and piling that out, because on my end as the realtor, I'm always looking to take a look at what they're in order for me to do my job and make my point to you that I'm the person you should be working with. I want to be more concerned with your risk than you are. From the real estate agent. And I mean, I think that, see, you guys are the perfect investor in a sense, because you're going to be the folks that are working with 12 different real estate agents typically, because you know enough stuff that you don't need a whole heck of a lot. And the only way for somebody like me in the real estate end of the business to take and make a case for you that you need me and to fire those other 11 guys is to show you that I know stuff and I'm looking at stuff that maybe you weren't aware of. And seeing as you're in the business, it's hard to find those things. But if I can give you a definitive number that actually compares, you're not looking at just your gross, but your true net numbers and what your expectations can be, and looking at the difference. I mean, Airbnb is a good model. It's just not as sexy as people make it out to be because they look at the gross number, but I do like it. It's the hotel business.
The thing about, like, this isn't the 1980s, even with real estate, you know, the regular transactions, this isn't the 1980s where everything has to be done by hand either. The great thing about whether it's short-term rentals or whether you're just comping out houses or whatever, everything's at the push of a button these days. Those analytics that you need to know that vacancy factor, some of that data is even on Airbnb itself, and the tools like AirDNA. I mean, everything is right there so that you can make an intelligent and educated and informed decision.
I just had lunch with a friend of mine. He's one of the lenders. I know him through friend of a friend, and we hadn't spent too much time together. He just sold his company for like 35 million or something like that. Son of a gun. Nice hit he got. We had lunch about a month ago, and he used a term that I got laughing about. We were talking about. He said, "Oh, you should do more hard money lending." I said, "I do some on the side." And he said, "Well, that's what I do here." We were talking about stuff. He said, "Well, it's a thing, you know." And so we talked about another business idea. He goes, "Yeah, that's a thing." So just like this, Airbnb, it's a thing. Meaning there's a lot of stuff involved. It's not just like, "Hey, I get the high month rent." Okay, but there's a lot of stuff in the middle. So our course, you know, we're as you can probably tell, we're not BSy, like fluffy, like, "Oh my God, it's worth $1 billion."
Yeah.
But we do, like, our course is called Thrive with 5, and we teach people, listen, let's work in the next year to get you 5 rentals that are each making $2,000 a month, like net. Like, let's work on that. And we have coaches that help too. So we say, listen, if we can get you that's 10,000 a month. That could be that's a life changing money income. Now you'll have to work for it, because even if you have a property manager, there's headaches. Like, we had to go in front of the town in 2 different towns because a neighbor would not stop bitching. And so she created havoc. So we had to go in front of the town. So I had 30 of my friends come and vouch for us. And the town was like, uh-oh. And so, you know, but there's a thing, right? We had to.
You got to solve those problems.
Yeah. And that, so like my friend said, he said, well, that's a thing. Every business idea we had takes energy. And I think that it's important people to know that, yes, there's more money there, but there is more energy that goes, because a rental, out of our 40-ish regular rentals, you know, I don't deal much with that. We have a property management company that I pay them 8% a month. They handle the headaches. And there's plenty of headaches in New York, because God knows they can live rent free up there forever. Apparently, you don't even get me going.
Yes, I'm familiar with the People's Republic of New York.
Oh, you get me going. It's not a Friday. Don't do this to me on a Friday. Okay, I don't want to get all jacked up for the weekend. But
my father was one of the largest landowners in Red Hook, Brooklyn for decades.
Okay.
And so when Emperor Cuomo's father was Lord Protector, he decided in his infinite wisdom, in order to fund the really important things that New York needed to do, that he was going to pass a special tax called the Cuomo tax, that every property sold over $1 million had to give 10% of the proceeds to the state of New York. And then, because of his tremendous acumen in economics, was shocked when the real estate market in New York tanked. He didn't see that one coming. Couldn't pick that one up ahead of time. Yeah, no, politicians are something that should just be kept out of the way half the time, I think.
You got that right. So, but like I say, it is a thing. Now, we haven't ventured into just the one we looked at today down here in Florida. We're like, okay, let's start venturing down here. So that's going to be a different thing for us. Going into a vacation rental space where the properties aren't 150 grand, the properties are $1 million. That's going to be a different thing, and there's more competition. So that's going to be a different animal for us. But we'll, like we always do, we'll figure it out, and we'll document it, and hopefully help other people get there and that kind of stuff. So, you know, but you're right. But at the end of the day, I will say that bank account accumulates more money faster than many of my other ones combined.
Sure.
Because there is money in there. Now, for me, it's very hands off, because Amber's pretty hands off, because our son is the manager. So
right.
Manager in there, you know, his generation, Josh. I mean, damn, he's just on the phone. He's zipping away doing his. I'm like, he comes down here. I'm like, how you doing, pal? What's going on? He goes, I just handle a guest. I'm like, okay. He's doing his thing. It's all, Airbnb. By the way, the Airbnb guy that invented that, was it Brian? He's from Latham, New York, which is one town over from us.
Oh, wow.
Niskayuna. Yeah. So pretty
Good
cool
stuff.
Yeah. So of course we go into, we dive into like good and bad, ugly. That's like, as we teach you, we're not fluffy. We're, we talk about the fluff stuff. We say that there's fluff. The common theme in our workshop is what we do is hard work, but it's worth it. I go over that over
Absolutely.
and over, because I say, if you go to a workshop and someone says, oh, you can make 10,000 a month like that, get the hell out of there, because you're going to get
Leave.
screwed.
The only one making 10,000 a month is going to be them off you. Absolutely.
That's right. They're not going to help you.
You have to systemize it.
Yeah.
Just like anything, to create
It- it's a matter of, like with any business, finding the problems, dealing with the problems as they come up one at a time. And there are many of them, and who's going to do it and how's it going to get done? I mean, when I teach flipping, because I teach flipping to agents as to how to take and instruct, and there's a laundry list of problems that have come up. I know, because they're the same problems when I buy and hold that I have to deal with. I have to get this home ready to go.
Yeah.
The only problem I'm not dealing with is looking for a resale, looking for a buyer, but I have to find a tenant for the property anyway. And I have to put this property in condition. And, I mean, the fun stuff that's changed over the last few years, you touch the kitchen, you're pulling a building, electrical and plumbing permit. And now you have to have at least 6 circuits in every single kitchen, and every circuit in the house has to be an arc fault circuit. Why? Because somebody in the electrical board somewhere owns stock in arc fault circuit breakers. God knows why. And they don't make skinny arc fault breakers. No, they're full size. So now you're doing a full panel change, and that's $2,000 you weren't anticipating, because guess what? The leads coming in from the service aren't quite long enough to reach the terminals in the new panel. So you're pulling the lines back from the, I mean, and the real world stuff that goes on that, you just didn't see coming, because why do we have to do that? And so
there was a town up by us in New York, Schenectady, and if the house had been vacant for 6 months or more, you had to bring the entire house up to code, whether you were in the room or not. You had to bring the entire
Whether you
house
touched
up
it or
to
not. Yeah. They walk it. Yeah.
And you had to have a permit to change a toilet, even as a homeowner.
Welcome to New York.
Oh my good. There are some municipalities, let me warn you, especially if you ever get to this side of the southeast corner of the state where I'm hanging out, that require a reoccupancy inspection, which is the building official walks through the home, and if he sees anything that was done without a permit, ding. Now
Every time you re-rent it,
every time you resell it. Resell. So the cool thing is, if you're buying it, just make sure, if it's required, to get it, because it's the seller's responsibility to do it. And as long as they do it, it's on them to take and deal with anything, or you're getting credits at closing to close permits out, which for you guys is great, but there's at least a half a dozen municipalities down here. One of them that'll blow your mind. You ever heard of this country called Hialeah?
Yeah.
It's a South American country where nothing is done with permits. Yeah, they require reoccupancy inspections now. So, you had that house that's listing as a 2-bedroom, 1 bath in the tax record. And you go there, it's 12 bedrooms and 17 baths with an indoor and outdoor pool, and cigar boxes as electrical junction boxes. That house, they're going to walk through that house.
Wow.
So, some tremendous flipping opportunities there, because folks are going to be basically having to pay you to take the house with the number of code violations they're going to have.
Yeah, crazy.
But that is one of the big spaces on the flipper side down here is code violations.
That area between A1A and 95, I think there's a lot of houses in that area because I used to live in Hollywood. Okay,
cool. Yeah, that whole area there. Yeah, near 95 is just sort of, I have a dog, his name is Chubasaur, and he says it well, rough. That area is rough. It's not, it's far from the best. But I mean, I know that we've had some big wins on the flip side, and we've had some definite ones that were a bit of dogs. And for me, it's always when the price point started getting higher, those are always the ones where we got in trouble. If I stayed in the cheaper homes all day long, I've made money with every one of them.
Yep.
Us too. Yeah. Every time my team we started our flipping company's expanded around New York a little bit. We're heading down south now. And if that goes well, they're gonna go out west. And they start looking at a house that was, $800,000 to buy, help us up 1.4. I said, guys, I'll look at it, but and then we started looking, and there was enough red flags for me to go, what do you think? And they're like, maybe not. I go, yeah, maybe not. So just, because they're like, oh, we can make money. I go, do you realize what the holding cost is on that? Let's talk about holding costs first. Let's get into some real numbers here. Remember this, I got this interest rate, I'm paying 10%, 11% on those numbers. I'm like, you gotta,
those numbers that are the silent killers of deals.
Yeah.
So. The holding costs that you're absolutely right. Your carry costs will eat your lunch and they're leaving you with nothing but your lunch pail to cry in. Absolutely. It's brutal. And I mean, that's been That's always the thing that people tend to underestimate. And they have these beautiful timelines and they have their inspection report, and then they pull the first sheet of drywall off and surprise. You know? Yeah. You know, those studs that are supposed to be on the wall, termites had those for lunch about 3 years ago. There's nothing there. Now,
I think that comes from knowing your shit. Like, and we have an evaluator sheet, a home flipping evaluator, and we like build in what we call, it's a very technical term, the oops factor.
Very
Because
technical.
every house that you ever do is going to have some oops in it. So you better build in an oops factor.
Absolutely. Absolutely. No, if it doesn't make money, with some spread in there, because that's the thing. When you're in that business, the second you commit to that house, every nickel that goes out is coming directly out of profits.
Right.
Yeah.
And so, somebody's got to take and do that job of managing that project, of making sure that project is on budget, on time. And it is I'm a general contractor too. I have a general construction company here. And so I know closing projects out, man, it is just a battle of wills against the entire universe. It feels like sometimes. No, I want my tile today. Where do I have to go to pick it up? I'll send a truck up there to get it, kind of thing.
Yeah, and it's so funny you mentioned that, like the end of the job, because it's like anybody can get 90% of the way there. It's that last 10% of the job that just takes bloody forever.
It crushes your soul. Absolutely. The soul crushing 10. Absolutely. No, so I mean, the last piece, and maybe I want to kind of get to the investment piece. Do you find that you have to encourage people a lot to kind of change their thinking about switching from consumption to investment? Or do you find that they come to you guys ready to take and make that switch?
I think people want to make that switch. I don't think it's a matter of convincing them to go from consumption to investing. I think it's a matter of getting them past the fear of investing.
Right.
Because
Sure.
I think the fear of the unknown, and the fear of not having the right knowledge, and the fear of, even just like these self-limiting beliefs that people put on themselves. So most of it, I think, is just getting people past the fear of whatever it is that they're scared of.
They come to our workshop, and day one, morning one, it's a Friday morning, it's Friday, Saturday, Sunday. And morning one, I do them live. I'm the speaker. And so we have thank you. We have multiple speakers that come on, but I'm the primary speaker. I say, okay, do you guys, as I start the day, I go, after a series of things I talk about, but one of the things I say is, do you think after 870 some flips, 15 years in this game, and Amber and I have learned a couple things? Is that possible? And everybody's like, yeah, that's okay. I don't know everything, but is it possible I've learned a couple things?
Mm-hmm.
Great. So when I tell you some things today, you might not agree with me, but you'd be wrong. I said, because I'm telling you, I know that I know what works, what doesn't work. I said, one of the things is we're going to work on your mental state, because you're going to have nothing but challenges. You've said it during this podcast. You said, we're going to have problems with contracts. We're going to have problems with finishing the job. We're going to have trouble. And you said, we're going to, everything you do. Yeah, there's things you have to overcome. So I say, I'll ask a question early on. I say, so it's kind of a leading question. I say, what's the most important part of a house? Everyone finally gets around to saying foundation. That's okay. So what's the most important part of your business? And they finally get around to saying foundation. I say, what's the foundation? They say, well, it's me. I'm like, right. So we're going to work on you this morning. So we go over some very basic things to learn. A big thing, like we get these bracelets out, people go, one of the questions we have is, how can I? It's very simple. Again, basic kind of mentality, but everything we say is, how can I? Instead of saying, oh my God, I can't finish this house on time. How can I finish this house on time? Get very simple. I can't find the money for this deal. How can I find the money? We teach these simple mental shifts so they can increase their chance of being successful. And that's where we spend a lot of time. And then by the time that we're done on Friday, they're like, I didn't think I needed that. Like I wasn't aware that I needed that. I say, because the minute we add 6 figures and commas to the equation, you're going to start freaking out. People freak out about money. I say, if I told you could buy a house for $10 and put $10 in and make 50 grand, you do it all day long. But we add zeros, we all get freaked out. So we got to work on that mental side. So once we do all that, people are like, that's actually good. I didn't think this. So if anybody says, I didn't come for a pep talk, I'm like, not a pep talk. You're going to get the shit kicked out of you in this business. You're going to. And so I'm making you tough. So when you do get kicked, you're like, Glenn said this was coming. I'm ready. So that's
absolutely.
You're going to get punched in the gut. At least you can.
Yeah, we're very blunt. I think that's why people love us so much. They're like, you guys are real. I'm like, yeah. Why bullshit people? Like, this is hard. It's anything in life worth anything was never easy to achieve. It's always work. I don't think we appreciate it if we don't. I don't know if you saw Tiger Woods when he got inducted in the Hall of Fame. He said something, this is paraphrasing, but something to the effect of, if you get something easy, you don't appreciate it and you don't deserve it, because you know you don't deserve it. And he said, and I know, he kind of was alluding to the fact that I know I deserve to be here. He worked his whole life to be there. And
Yep.
so, it was a really valid point. He said, if you don't, I think you'll find a way to sabotage if you have an instant quick deal. You'll find a way to ruin it, you know what I mean? Because you're mentally just not ready for it. So that's what we spend a lot of time on. And then because people I think always come there ready to invest. They're like, how do I make money in real estate? Let me show them 4 different ways to make it. And we break it down so basic, like, oh, this is different than I thought. That's why we have so many reviews. I think they're all 5-star. We have one 1-star. Somebody said we were a scam. And I laughed hysterically. I said, $59, all the stuff we gave you, it's a scam. I called her. She's like, well, I guess not. I go, would you mind taking the review down then? No. Thank you, bitch. So anyway, so I went out, and then we had somebody, sorry, I know, but whatever. Well, she was.
Yeah.
And then somebody else complained that didn't like the bathroom at the hotel in Buffalo. So that was all, yeah. Like that had a lot to do with me. Other than that, we have all 5-star reviews.
Sorry,
So,
we didn't renovate the hotel.
yeah.
Good stuff. Good stuff. No, I mean, I think it's important, and it's something that I have to do with agents, because being a real estate agent also, believe it or not, will kick your butt from time to time.
Oh, so we weren't a broker. Amber's a broker. We have a brokerage too. It's only really for our own deals, but we understand. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I mean, you're going to have the deal that, it's right there at the finish line and it falls apart. And, there's all this work that goes into, work with the customer, you get them close and they go and use somebody else and all this sort of thing. And so I tell folks in real estate, if you haven't cried yourself to sleep in this business at least once, you're doing something wrong.
Yeah.
My job is to let you know that when it gets hard, you're doing something right, because it's hard for all of us. And so it's exactly what you're saying. You're basically preparing them in advance for what you know is coming and saying, hey, look, when you get there and you're freaking out, that's normal. You've reached normal. This is what we all have gone through. And so for most people, I'll tell you what's interesting. When I teach, sometimes I'll ask, who here is ready to go skydiving? And you'll always have a handful of people that throw their hands up. They're ready to go jump out of a plane. How many of you people invest? Hands all go down. And I'm like, why? Well, it's risky. I'm like, you do realize how crazy that sounds, right? You're completely ready to jump out of a perfectly good airplane, where the risk of failure is seeing how many times you can bounce from 10,000 feet versus just losing some money. We have blown this up, and people do seem to have a fear of failure that's disproportional to what it should be. The way we learned to walk was by stumbling and falling a lot to get there.
Sure did.
And so, as we get older, we do things like come into one of your classes to take and, hey, look, you guys already know how to walk. Tell me about it. Before I try this whole walking thing, tell me, are there any tips I should know, any stretches before I start trying to get up on my feet, kind of thing. You learn to start asking folks that have done it and done it successfully, what did they do to get there? And it's just a wise choice. So guys, it's a tremendous resource you provide to people. I mean, good stuff. I thank you for what you do. It's something that people need. I want to see more people invest. People need to invest more. The investor class is the only group of people that have really been winning over the last several decades.
How are you going to beat inflation if you don't? I open my workshop, like, how do you? My daughter, I just saw one of my employees today. I didn't tell you, Joe posted a car online, 170,000 miles on his car, asking 5,500, and he'll probably get it. And I'm laughing because my daughter is 17. We had her save up her money. I said, I'll match whatever you save. She got 1,500 bucks saved. Can't find a car for $3,000. And I'm like, when did that ever happen? And the car, if I do find one, it has to have 250,000 miles on it. It's barely even making it. So inflation has just driven so many things crazy that, and that's supply demand. That's maybe just inflation, but there's, how are you going to make it? Like, it's a lot. If you don't have a significant second income, and most people do what we do alongside their current job. That's what we encourage people to start off.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it's like, I say to people, if you don't do this, how are you? Because what do they say? 8% inflation? I think that's bullshit. I think it's a lot more than that. And
it's at least 12% based upon the.
It has to.
Gotta be.
And so I'm like, how are you going to make it? If you don't do something. So I think that's why our education is doing. So if people come there saying, I need something to make an extra $50,000 a year, because I know that me working at McDonald's part time isn't going to cut it.
No, I mean, look, when it comes right down to it, and actually, I was the very first time I spoke to a large group, I had like it was a Century 21 uh, international convention out there in Las Vegas. So I'm used to speaking to 50, 100 people in a room, no biggie, right? Now they're taking me in a room and it's like 500, 1,000 people. There's a stage like eyeball high and this giant screen with my face on it. And I'm doing my best not to freak out because public speaking, while I do it now and I love it, it was never really my jam. And so I'm like, this could easily call back some bad juju for me. So anyway, I get up there, I'm teaching about negotiation. And one of the things that I teach is this can of Coke thing that I do, talking about what a can of Coke cost when I was a kid. What if I took that money? So like when I was my very first job working for my dad, I was 9 years old. I would load the vending machine. A can of Coke costs 50 cents. Well, if I go to the same vending machine today, it's $1.50.
Yeah.
So I said, well, what if first I asked, like, did the can of Coke change? Did the recipe change? Did the can change? Did the vending machine make it any different? No, it's all the same. So the only thing that changed was really the money that I used to buy it. So what if I took that 50 cents and I put it in a savings account for the last 30 years? What did that 50 cents? I mean, compounding interest for the last 30 years. Well, I took the financial calculator out and I did the math. It turned into 56 cents, which means I can't take that money that I put in there and buy the can of Coke I could when I put it in. I can buy a third of a can of Coke.
Yeah.
What if I took that $1.50 and I bought the can of Coke instead?
Yeah.
Could I load that can of Coke in the vending machine today and sell it for $1.50? And the answer is, yeah, nothing's really changed about the Coke. So is there any product that we know of like that in the whole wide world? Well, real estate does the exact same thing that the can of Coke does. And here's what's even better. If it's an income property, as the value of money goes down, not only does the value of the property goes up, the rent goes up as well. And if you want to win 3 times on inflation, you borrow as much money as you can from the bank, spend their money today, and then pay them back with future garbage, less valuable money. They're losing 12% of buying power on the money they've lent out the banks right now. And they're charging me 5 points on the money. That's a 7-point differential all day long that I'm making on their money. So for me, it's a no-brainer. Real estate now is valued higher by virtue of the type of market that we're in. And it's to be expected because in the 1970s, this is exactly what happened. Real estate prices shot way up and they didn't come down. My father bought 577 Ocean Boulevard, which is on the ocean in my Golden Beach, one of the biggest houses there, in 1970 for $100,000. He sold it in 1982 for $1 million, the exact same home. And he lived there in the interim. So yeah, real estate has been good to the family. And it's a great way for the average person. And the reason why I told you the story about that negotiation class, I remember what the point I was going to make was there was a gentleman in the front row. I kind of focused on him to kind of get me past the first couple of minutes and the agita I was feeling, if you will. Yeah. And the guy came up to me at the end of the class after I gave him that same Coke analogy. And he said, you know what? I heard it a long time ago. I want to share it with you. You know what the difference between experiencing inflation and appreciation is? I said, I don't. He said, ownership. I said, wow, that's good stuff. That's good stuff. So every dollar you have in that property, guys, is going to be taken care of and looked after by the inflation gods because they're not going to touch it. It's going to be completely converted to appreciation for you. And the folks on the other side of the equation, the tenants out there who are watching their rents go up, all they'll do is experience inflation. And what's crazy is really and you're absolutely right, Glenn, the only way to eject yourself from that boat, because wages never go up fast enough to keep pace with the inflation that's occurring. I mean, they're sitting there touting we had 5% almost 5% wage growth. Yeah, but the rate of inflation was 12. So you lost 7.
What's the difference? I know.
Right.
Woohoo, you're down. Your standard of living has fallen by 7%, right? But if you own a home, that fixed rate mortgage is the one portion of your expenses that's not changing while everything else is going up. So that portion of your income that's devoted to that, your pay raises, which you will get, you can reallocate that to maintain your standard of living. If you're renting, that cap isn't there. That rent is going up with everything else. Your standard of living is just flat out falling. And so now it's important stuff. It really, really is. But final thoughts, guys. Anything before I let you go? We've been talking for a while.
Oh, I think this has been great. I think that, I think we obviously see life the same way. And I think that anybody that wants to get involved in real estate investing, I don't care if you follow us or follow somebody knows what they're talking about.
Right.
Just get with people that really know what they're talking about. But I think that I don't know how else you're going to survive.
I don't either.
I don't know how you're going to survive if you don't. I mean, I just don't know. I mean, part-time jobs won't cut it. And That was a great line. That was a great line about,
Ownership.
I want to hear that again, how he said to you, how you experience inflation.
What's the difference between experiencing inflation and appreciation?
Got it.
Ownership.
Experiencing, appreciate. Yeah, that was a great line. Ownership. That guy. Isn't that funny how you meet somebody in your life, they say something and it sticks to you, right? Isn't that funny?
Absolutely.
But yeah, that's how life goes, right? Get the golden nuggets. So yeah, no, it's great. I would love being on your show today, and I hope we made an impact to some of your listeners, and hope they got something out of it.
All right. So the biggest question, when folks decide they like you way better than me, how do they find you guys? How do they reach out to you?
Well, if they want to come to the workshop, they can go to homeflippingworkshop.com, and then we have all of our other programs. We have them housed in one area to make it easy, and that's at glennandamber.com, and Glenn has 2 N's on it.
We have a lot of YouTube. We have lots of videos, training, lots of stuff we give away for
Content,
free.
lots of content, little nuggets, and sometimes all it is a nugget that people need, and then they can take that and make millions with it.
Yeah.
Beautiful, beautiful. Guys, thank you so much for coming and hanging out today. Glenn, Amber, it was really genuinely a pleasure.
Thanks for having us.
Thanks for having us.
We enjoyed it.
No problem, guys. Take care.
Bye now.
Bye.
Bye.